Yo, what's up? I got a couple people in here. Okay, so now I can start talking. Welcome to my first ever attempt at streaming on YouTube. Pretty excited about this. Actually, to be honest with you, I was excited yesterday when there was more buzz about about Song of Ice and Fire. Today, I had to wait a day for them to approve my account, and today I just feel nervous that no one's going to be in here for very long. So we'll see how long it goes. But yeah, I'm stoked on the update. I think all of us have been waiting for an update to this game for a long time. And so, yeah, I basically wanted to start it off by breaking down probably the three factions that I have the most experience with in the past 6 months to a year. Definitely Martell is my favorite faction, so I'm going to start there. And then we're going to work our way up Westeros and Essos. We're going to go north. So basically, we're going to go from Martell. I think we're going to go Baratheon next, and then Targaryen. I think they're somewhere in the southern part of Essos, so that tracks. We'll do those three this round, and then we'll probably do another stream. I don't know, in a couple days, maybe next week, to go over three more factions. But yeah, plus that gives me more time to research it because I can't just pull shit out of my ass like I can with these three factions. Yeah, I'm God's Grief. I don't know if I said that. My name's Pat. I go by God's Grief online. I play in probably the most competitive scene. I'm probably talking to people from that scene, and probably the most competitive scene in the U.S., I would think. And we play very, tournament competitive Song of Ice and Fire. It is brutal. It's no fun for new players. We do everything we can to try to make it a little bit easier for new players, and so hopefully this stream helps with that too, to just get people thinking about how these updates are going to affect the meta and how you can be competitive, how you can kind of find the combos in these things, and get better. And hopefully, this game is all about just taking L's until you can kind of break through. And so yeah, that's what we're doing here today. So let's jump into the updates. Overall, I think the updates are fine. They're interesting. I don't want to poo-poo them right off the bat because I feel like that's people just do that too much. Anyway, it's very easy to kind of pick on this game, and trust me, I am one of those people that will do that because I just, the game stresses me out a bit. Let me see here. Oh, it's not letting me go to different pages. That's weird. The game kind of stresses you out because it's not set up to be like an even game, right? It's purposefully an uneven playing field between the factions. Some factions have, in one of my biggest gripes is some factions have a lot of armor, some do not, and so that's going to affect you differently. And they try to balance things as best they can. I think they do a really good job in terms of the design of the game, but yeah, it leaves a little bit to be desired if you want to be competitive with certain factions. You sort of have to chase the meta sometimes. Some factions just have super pushed units and combos that other factions don't have access to. But that being said, I think that overall the game is in, at least last round, we'll see what this update brings, but in the last round of updates, the game has been as balanced as it ever has been in the 2 or 3 years that I've been playing it. I know there's a lot of people who have been playing since the beginning where it was very unbalanced. And so I think they're doing a great job. Personally, I think you can find a lot of things to get upset with, but in terms of where it's at now and where it's been before, I think it's in a really good place. Um, I don't. You're gonna have to bear with me a second because I don't think that I'm going to be able to show the way that I wanted to. So I'm gonna get back to it. Let me see if I start it up again, if it works. Sharing my screen. Yeah, it's just like locked on the Boltons for some reason. So I got to see if I can fix that. Okay, cool. So if it snaps back, let me know in the chat, and I'll try to fix it. But yeah, we'll get it going here. Thanks, Unforgiven Miniature Games. I appreciate it. Cool. Got my first comment here. This is exciting. All right. So yeah, let's go through some of the changes to Martell. Again, my favorite faction. I think they're designed they're beautifully designed. They're very difficult to play against. I know that they give a lot of people trouble, and hopefully, that's something that I can help with in the coming videos. Is talk a bit about what Martell are trying to do and help to kind of make it easier to see some of the combos that they're trying to set up, because the whole point of the faction is to kind of force you to make in to make decisions and moves that you wouldn't typically do, to kind of throw off your tempo. I think of Martell as, if you're thinking about Magic the Gathering, they're kind of like the blue auras deck, right? They're trying to like slow you down, throw off your tempo, and then get their thing online, get their kind of engine online before you can, and then just stay ahead of you. But they melt when you start to get into battle and combat. And so, trust me, that's something I think all Martell players are weary of. Even if you feel like you're winning the game, you can start losing that game very, very quickly as people get engaged. They just do not stand up well to attacks and hits. All right, so we're going to talk about some of the updates. First, I'm going to go through my top updates for Martell. I think, hot take here, I think that Martell I think their best update is the update to Nymeria Sand. So her old card was basically this exact thing, except for this bottom text right here. Instead of it saying the horses, it was the water gardens. And the problem with that is that if your opponent goes first and they take the water gardens, her card is completely blanked, right? So water gardens turn off. They basically have a passive ability and an active ability. They force you to go first. They force the opponent to activate a unit on board, so you can't activate an NCU, and that's fine. That's cute. It can throw off some of your tempo with your activations. But really, what it does is, while you're controlling it, your opponent doesn't count as controlling any of the spots on the NCU board or on the tactics board for abilities and effects. And so basically, while they're controlling the water gardens, her card is completely blanked. And it's just a waste of an influence, basically. Which is, it's cool, but it means that you really don't want to run Nymeria with the water gardens. And so to have the water gardens as one of her bonuses is just kind of like a waste of a bonus, like in my opinion. And this is much better. So now she has the horses, and if you think about it, when I think about it, that means that if you have Nymeria Sand, and most of our meta out here, I don't know about everywhere else, is 3 NCUs against 3 NCUs. Sometimes it's 3 against 2. It's very rarely 2 NCUs versus 2 NCUs. So the way to look at it is, if you bring 3 NCUs, you're likely going to have all of these spots take board. And because it's either your opponent controls or you control, it means that you're going to have one super nasty unit that has vicious crit blow and now +1 to movement, without having to worry about every other turn the opponent has the water gardens and just turns her off. So Nymeria Sand looks like a really, really strong improvement. big upgrade. And I just think about putting her on, their our what are they? The Royal Guard, just kind of like our Death Star unit. If you can have, say, you have like Obara Commander in Royal Guard. Now they have Sundering, um, and I think they can auto 6 on a charge, taking some wounds. They also have Intimidating Presence to heal themselves back up. Sundering and Crit Blow are. It's probably, look, it never works for me. It sounds a lot better than it has played out for me in the past. But in terms of keywords that you want to pair up, I think Sundering and Crit Blow are the two best you can have, because Sundering affects every hit, and Crit Blow gives you the opportunity to throw more hits than dice, right? So uh, I think that's a great combo. Vicious is just like a little bit of extra to help with some of. So you think about like Tully Cav, which have 5 up morale. They throw a tree out, now it's 4 up. Vicious can help make the difference, in causing Tully Cav to not pass their morale test, not heal a bunch, even if it's just one time out of the 1 or 2 times out of all of your attacks on them. That can make a big difference in being able to get one of those units off the board. So Vicious, I think in earlier versions of this game was a lot spicier, but everybody at least in our meta, can protect against Vicious and morale pretty well, unless you're like really tuned to take advantage of it. But it does help, just kind of make the difference on, in the aggregate, you can stop people from getting their bonuses off of passing morale tests or passing panic tests. So that's good. And then the +1 in movement, again, pairs really nicely with the Royal Guard. They're a 5-inch movement unit. Most stuff in Martell is 6 inches, so that brings them up to 6 inches. And so, yeah, so I think she's getting a huge upgrade here. It's just a small change, but I think it makes a big difference. Next, I have, and by the way, if you're watching, I think there's one person watching right now. If you have any questions, throw it in the chat, and I'll talk about that. My next biggest upgrade for Martell is Doran NCU. If you remember, also Vicious stacks with the deck. Thank you very much, Cash Crop, Brandon. Yes, so there is a card in the deck, Unbound, Unbent, Unbroken, where it's -2 to the opponent's panic test. I don't think it's morale; it's panic test. So yeah, Vicious does take advantage of that card very well. So yeah, you can stack that up. So yeah, actually, that's even more utility for that card. That's awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, so for Doran, everybody remembers when he first rolled out and he was super oppressive. Basically, you have 2 different zones that you could take every round. Once he gets to 4 order tokens on him, when he takes one of those zones, he starts scoring 2 victory points every round. And so a lot of times you can get 6, sometimes 4 if they can kind of disrupt it. But it was very oppressive. I think it felt more oppressive than it was, but it was a very oppressive card or unit, NCU. The reason I say that is because as a Martell player, I understood that what I was really doing against high-level players with that was I was forcing them to take zones they didn't want or bring units that they would have rather brought someone else. I mean, that's Martell's whole game. It's about just sort of threatening you with, hey, if you don't address this, it's going to be oppressive. And then you're just constantly, putting people in the wrong spot. So I love that about it. When they brought it down with the update to just 1 victory point per round that you have for order tokens, I think that it was kind of unusable because it just didn't make much sense to then you were kind of doing it, right? You were going into the wrong spot to try to get those points and you just didn't get enough payoff. So I think this update is great. It's great. I love it. I'm very excited for it. I think it's something I want to tinker with more than anything, but I don't know if it's like game breaking. To me, Doran sort of looks like kind of a split between Varys in terms of his utility and then sort of Tywin, where you can pull off a bunch of these tokens at once and get a bunch of effects all at once. So basically the card reads, each time Doran claims a zone, before resolving that zone's effect, place 1 order token on him. If Doran claims the Water Gardens, place +1 order token on him. So he's always going to want to go to the Water Gardens, get 2 tokens instead of 1. And then each time Doran claims the Water Gardens, you may replace that zone's effect with, and we're going to go through that. So basically, when you claim the Water Gardens, you would get 2 tokens automatically. And then you could choose to replace the effect and take those right off and get these, 2 or however many order tokens you have, up to 4, get these benefits. And I believe that we clarified last night that you can't do the same thing over and over, because that would be cheesy and great for us, but yeah, I don't think you can do it. So the effects that you can choose from, again, up to 4. If you have 4 order tokens, you can do all of these. If you have 5, you can only do 4. You could restore up to 2 wounds. Very good. Martell need healing, so that's incredible. Remove 1 condition token from 1 unit. Again, really good, because a lot of times you really need those attacks to count. So if you have a weakened token on you, Alaria Sand is really good because she picks up a weakened token, or picks up a token, and she can make your units, you keep them effective when people are throwing out tokens on you. So pick up a condition token. You can also draw 1 tactics card. Nice utility. Kind of reminds me of Varys there. Place any 1 condition token on an enemy unit. So if you have somebody who's, you need to be vulnerable, or you need to be panicked or weakened, you can get that out. As well as some additional stuff, which is nice. Alaria will throw out a token. She picks 1 up, maybe throws 1 out, but she doesn't get you a tactics card. She doesn't get you any healing. This is, I think this is going to be really helpful in our faction. So you can place 1 condition token on an enemy. You can also pivot and then shift 2. That's going to be sneaky good for this faction, because we're all about movement. And I recently I've run Targs a lot, and their tactics deck is kind of underpowered, but the movement that they have it can be oppressive when it starts stacking, right? Like if you're just out of range, and then you shift up, and now it's a 3-up charge, or I guess it would be probably do a 5-up charge, or whatever it is. If you're just out of range, or if you need to just get out of range, then that pivot and then shift can make all the difference. So that's pretty cool, situationally. And then the last one is enemy combat unit suffers 1 wound. So if you take 4 of these, right? Let's see. You'd probably take heal 2 right off the bat, remove a condition token, draw a tactics card, and then maybe place a condition token. Or if you have somebody down running away from you on 1 wound left, you could kill a unit. You could kind of do the Tywin thing with his hits. It's a small kind of use case, but you could bring somebody down a rank. You could kill a unit, and it just automatically happens, right? You don't even have to have them roll for it. So pretty cool. I think this is what I've seen from the Martell changes, are that they're going to suck me back in to playing an army that I think is flawed in a lot of ways. It's very, very good, but flawed in some ways. It didn't fix the flaws. This update didn't fix the flaws, but it gives you some tools to tinker with and see if you can kind of overcome them in other ways. And so, yeah, these 2 units, Nymeria and Doran, I think are great. They're 1 and 2 for me on this update, in terms of things that, tools that you can use to tinker and try to find some more power. I do think it's interesting that these 2 don't fit. They're basically separate NCU shells, right? You can build one around Nymeria, but you wouldn't want her with Doran, because bringing Water Gardens means the opponent takes it. She's blanked, right? And then Doran, he would have his own NCU kind of shell that you would build. And so I think that's kind of a cool kind of bifurcation that's happening with Martell in the NCUs. What's up? Hey, what's up, Carl? West Coast Bannerman. Good to see you, buddy. Everybody check out his channel, West Coast Bannerman. Throw a link up in the chat, Carl. It's for the 4 people watching that all know us. Let's make sure they go to your channel and give you a subscribe. All right, cool. So then on to the third one. The third best thing that I think Martell got is the improvement to the Strangler. And that one is really, it's just a general buff to the Strangler. Like, I think the Strangler is cool because it's cool in concept. In practice, it can kind of hamstring your army a little bit. What this used to do is at the end or at the beginning of round 2, Tahin gets to mark one of the tactic zones and put the Strangler on it. If the opponent takes the Strangler, that NCU would die at the end of the next round, right? So you get this round, you get the next round, and then they die. What's this? Matrix roll. I don't know what this is, but probably is my answer to that. So the Strangler worked in that way, and it was okay. I mean, it was cool. It worked better as a threat, right? You could say, hey, don't take this zone or something bad's going to happen to you. But I think in practice what happens is it actually kind of hurt the Martell player a bit more because you trust that zone was going to be open. And so you kind of leave yourself a little bit vulnerable a lot of times. Maybe great Martell players don't do this, but I would try to kind of like rest on, okay, I got that zone open, and then they take it. And the earlier they take it, the more that's going to affect you because you're not expecting it. And yeah, they're going to lose an NCU, but they can also choose which NCU they feed to it, right? So if they've already used Tycho's a great one to throw at that. And then it just kind of isn't getting you what you need out of it, right? So this update, I think, is really good, makes it really effective. And it's not perfect. That's why it's the third best update I think we got in this faction. But it is interesting. So basically, the same thing happens. You get to mark a zone because Tahin's card didn't change. You mark a zone at the start of round 2. And then when a unit takes that, when an NCU takes that zone, it gets the Strangler on it. Now you have cumulative effects based on a round, and it starts with round 2. That NCU loses all abilities. So if you try to feed Tycho to it round 2, you're not going to have Tycho's healing. So you almost have to wait and honor it for one round probably. I'm sure there are NCUs that can get their shit off like right away, and you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I think that's probably going to keep a lot of NCUs from taking it round 2. Whatever zone you mark, swords, bags, whatever it is. And then let's see. So then round 3, that unit isn't going to count as controlling tactic zones or abilities for effects. So it's kind of like a mini water gardens, right? So now that unit, if they take something and you needed, say you're have a lot of stuff where you need to have like the cards and the letters and the crowns. If that unit's on one of those, you don't count. It's not the best thing, but it's a little bit of added utility and a little bit of kind of you're kind of overloading your opponent's mind as they think about all of these like little things. They're already worried about their stuff, the game mode, what you're bringing, and then you add these other effects, and it just kind of can overload their processing. And so it's just a little bit more of that, but not really a huge issue. I think where this card gets really, really interesting is round 4. So round 4 says you may only activate this unit if you have no other units that can activate this round. Okay. So what does that mean? It means that you basically force the opponent to move up their activation economy and their tempo. I guess they're slowing their tempo down because they're going to start having to activate units on board before you have to, like at least one turn before the previous rounds, right? And that means you also have a lot more access to the board, to the tactics board, and you're probably going to force them to tip, and then they don't. I think I think this is interesting. I'm going to have to tinker with it to see what it actually does. But I think this is where the Strangler gets interesting. Um, Round 4, forcing your opponent to have to start activating on the board before they would have wanted to, on the table before they wanted to, while also leaving yourself a lot of options on the tactics board. So Tyenne's interesting in that way. Now, round 5 is where they kind of just add some consistency to destroying the NCU. Because you think about it, if the opponent gets to round 5, they can take the Strangler and they're going to die at the end of round 6. So it's not really a big issue. I guess it would count towards, points destroyed. But other than that, they would get the full use of them. But here you have it where start of round 5, or sorry, it says at round 5, destroy this unit at the start of round. So if you take it at round 5, round 6, they're dead. If they've taken it earlier, round 5, they're dead, which is awesome. It's moving up your action economy, like deciding to kill the bear rather than run from it. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, it's charging into the bear as opposed to running from it, which might help you in that one case, in that one example. Maybe not here. All right, so we have that. The other changes for Martell I thought were less exciting. Elia Sand, so Boisterous Charisma got nerfed all across the board. Elia Sand gets nerfed. And the thinking here is, well, the cool part is she goes down from 2 points to 1. Boisterous Charisma now is each time this enemy passes a panic test, or each time this unit passes a panic test, target one enemy unit in short range. They become vulnerable or weakened. That's interesting. You could put that on a really good, high morale unit. Also, Martell have cards that About Unbent Unbroken, auto passes panic. So yeah, you throw out a token for passing your panic test, just a little bit of benefit there. Yeah, Nymeria is still 2, correct. I don't think they changed her attachment, but yeah, she has some great abilities. But for Elia, going down from 2 to 1, I think is interesting. She still has precision, and she has this new reworked Boisterous Charisma. So I don't know, maybe she sees some play. For me, this is kind of a meh. Like I'll look into it more when I see an opportunity to use her. But I will say there are a couple things that changed in across the board that I think help Martell. One of them is Boisterous Charisma being nerfed. Boisterous Charisma hurt Martell more than any other faction because all of our debuff cards go on to the opponent's units, right? So if you have Boisterous Charisma or 2 instances of Boisterous Charisma, or God forbid 3 or 4 instances, then there's just way less targets for those, Rising Temps, About Unbent Unbroken, and Rhinish Vengeance is another one. So Boisterous Charisma getting a nerf is generally a buff for the Martell deck and just the way that they want to work. Another one that I think helps Martell quite a bit is the nerfing of Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps eats Martell ass. We have there is no solution for Hidden Traps. And you can just fight through it. You just have to take those wounds and keep cruising and get lucky. But the nerf to that I think is going to be really helpful. Let's see here. Can shoot into her. Engagement for tokens. Yeah, Carl, that's right. Yeah, so one of the cool things about this is if you have a really high morale unit, you're sitting on a tree, you're engaged, you can use your Sand Skirmishers or the new Skyreach Bowman and shoot into her unit, and now you're tossing out a vulnerable or weakened whenever she passes the panic test that you force her to have. So definitely cool for a unit that you're going to use to kind of stem the charge coming to your archer units, and you can just kind of sit behind. It's a lot like how I used to use the Outriders. Throw a Glory Seeker in there, right? And you get engaged with the Outriders, and then you shoot into whatever unit that is, and you're tossing out a wound every time they pass with their panic with Stubborn Tenacity. that was a cool usage of it too. Let's see, we got another question or comment here. New BC. Go for long charges and then weaken a unit if you fail the charge. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, if you're in short range and you fail the charge, you auto take a panic test. So with this unit, you're charging in. If you miss, but you're in, and you probably would be in short range. I mean, you're not going to charge 6 and get a 1. Hopefully, even then, you might be in short range. So yeah, you would be able to throw out a weaken, which would really protect your unit after missing a charge. And yeah, that's a great call, Bill. I don't know who that is. Some guy named Bill. Sneaky. All right. So yeah, generally I think this is kind of meh, but I'm starting to see some of the value in this. Definitely, yeah. There's ways that you can take advantage of this, and maybe even more so for Martell than other factions, with all of the shooting and the panic stuff that they have with their cards to defend against failing panic tests. I think that's pretty cool. This card is the bane of my existence. Fuck this card. Take this card out. Replace this card. Don't change this card. Just get rid of it. Main issue with this card, if you have ever used it, is just that it's so conditional for it to work. And once all the conditions are met and the person charges, they rarely fail it. And now you've just kind of tweaked it a little bit, added some different conditions. So you basically said if you're charging, superior positioning. When an enemy performs a charge action before resolving that action, if the enemy charges a unit in the front, they suffer a disorderly charge on a charge distance roll of 3 or less. If they suffer a disorderly charge, they become vulnerable, right? So all of that's conditional on them rolling 3 or less. They also have to charge you in the front. You also have to not be engaged, or maybe that is something that changed. I'm not sure. But yeah, okay. So maybe that if that is something that changed, that would be nice. That still works if you're getting charged in the front, but you're engaged. I would think this card has improved a little bit. But basically, the main change that they made here is just if the defender is your commander's unit, they suffer a disorderly charge on rolls of 5 or less. So basically, they need a 6 to avoid this. I mean, and then the benefit is kind of weak. They still get you, but it's a disorderly charge and they become vulnerable. That's cool, but they still got you. You know what I mean? If you could force them to stop before they get you, that could be a better use of this card. Anyway, I'm not super excited until I see this card work in action. It's a little bit more useful, but not enough in my opinion. There's just too many things that are thrown off in terms of like the conditions you need to meet, in my opinion. Let's see. We got some more comments here. Yo, what's up, Christian? That big body Tahoe trying to roll up. Keep it down, bro. I already got you. Let's see here. Who's Unforgiven Miniature Games? Is that somebody we know? Can we get clarification? I have a feeling it's Andrew, but I don't know. Just from the comments, I feel like it's Andrew, but I'm not sure. Sounds like figuring out new Martell tactics is like trying. Yeah, this got to be Andrew, right? It's like trying to figure out why the rabbit is unafraid of the panther. Oh no, you know what? This he's acting like Andrew, but he's referencing the movie The Edge over and over again. So it's either Jason or Kevin. Fantastic news. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. We're gonna kill the bear. We're gonna kill the motherfucker. If you guys have seen The Edge, shout out in the comments. This shit is dope. All right, so other changes to Martell, we'll just quickly go through. Bummer. First thing I saw when I looked at these was Starfall Knights got nerfed on, like everybody got nerfed with Sunder with the Lance. I just feel like in general, and we'll talk more about this when we get to Stark, I just feel like they nerfed the wrong part of Tully Cav. And it's kind of like my analogy for this is like when the older brother does something wrong and everybody gets a slap on the wrist instead of him getting handled. And so And so, yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like all Lance got kind of a slap on the wrist. That's probably not going to matter that much in terms of, I mean, it matters once they're engaged. It really sucks when Lance Cav is engaged now. But really, I think the problem with Totally Cav was their morale shit, and their healing. And so it's weird that everybody else got a nerf. But whatever, it happens. So yeah, that's the only change here. I think this is much harder to field because once they're engaged, they're going to have a hard time. Let's see here. Unforgiven said something and then he retracted it, so I'm not going to talk about it. I did read that message, and I know your name now. Maybe I know the name you gave me, but you retracted it, so I'm not going to call it out. Carl says they really needed something else positive to make up for it, like take away the flank or rear requirement. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like if you, instead of the, sort of having like an ambush feature where they get panicked and weakened, you can do that in the front charge. That'd be cool. Yeah. I think that would have, something to help it a little bit would be nice. This is going to be really hard to field now, just because once it's engaged, if you didn't get it on the charge, you're kind of screwed. And they're just not tanky enough to kind of hang like the other, like Totally Cav, or like even Lannister, Knights of Casterly Rock, I think are really way more tanky than this unit. This unit has great movement, but now, I don't know. They're just, it's scary to get this unit engaged. You better be finishing something off. You know what I mean? And that's tough. For an 8-point unit, you want them to be a bit more resilient. Non-heavy cav, 3+ defense or better should be 7 points. Maybe. Yeah, I would consider that. Non-heavy cav, better. So, I mean, heavy cav is 3+ defense or better, right? Typically, like with those other 2 units. But yeah, point change could make sense for sure. They should hand out vulnerable and weakened tokens. Yeah, so that's kind of like what Carl's saying. That would be cool. Yeah, since it's not ambush. And the weakened token would always protect it, which you really need. God damn it. Is it Jason? It's got to be Jason. It's Jason. All right, Unforgiven Miniatures. I think I know who you are. All right, so, and then what do we got here? ROHG have a better attack. Riders of Highgarden. Yeah, Riders of Highgarden, we're going to get to this with Baratheon next, but Riders of Highgarden, I think, actually got one of the biggest buffs in, definitely the biggest buff in Baratheon, in my opinion, with the +1 to hit on their charge. And it also demonstrates that you could have adjusted the text, like the text on the card, for all of these Lance Cav units that you're nerfing for no reason, other than Totally Cav. Like, you could have given them something a little bit better. I totally agree with that. All right, so we're done with Martells, are we? Yeah, we've covered everything here. So we're going to go on to Baratheon next. So we played a league early in the year, and Baratheon was my choice. And they are fun, but the problem is, in our meta, mobility is king, and Baratheon is the least mobile faction. So I was just sitting around getting flank charged up my ass, and I wasn't very good. But I'm not very good in general, so I guess that tracks. All right, so let's go through some of the Baratheon changes. My number one change for Baratheon, spoiler alert, I just talked about it, is this unit. The improvement to this unit, I think, makes this really, really, like, definitely something you consider fielding. Basically, I found a synergy towards the end of my time with Baratheon where I ran these 2 units with Courtney Penrose, and I ran 2 of these units. And perfect. The best thing is Baratheon have Final Strike in their main deck. if you use Penrose or some other way to generate card advantage, you can get to your final strikes. And then you have a unit that is threatening a big zone with that 6-inch movement cav unit. You charge them in and you do some damage. When it was just 4 up on the charge, 10 dice with Sundering. That's pretty good. But then when they'd hit you back, this unit just takes a ton of wounds because they're 5 up, 6 up morale, 5 up armor. They're going to take a ton of wounds, and then if you can throw a final strike, you really just kind of jump over the opponent. It worked a few times. Sometimes it didn't, but it was a really interesting way to use this unit, what I found. Now they're so much better. So yeah, you bring their dice down to 9 on the charge, 5 once they're engaged. But the +1 to hit means now you're rolling like every other Lance Cav. And for a 6-point unit with the mobility that this unit has, I think you compare this to an 8-point unit, the Starfall Knights. They have the same mobility and the same threat on the charge, but when they're engaged, they're both rolling 5 dice. This unit just hits on 4s. So it's like you're both kind of shit once you're engaged. This unit is so much better than that unit now. So I think, in my opinion, this is probably the biggest benefactor of the update for the Baratheon units, or anything in Baratheon. Let's take a look. If you disagree, throw it in the chat and we'll yell. We'll talk shit about it, but that's how I feel about it. Okay. Go on to number 2. My favorite thing that Baratheon got is this update to Andrew Estermont, and it's weird, right? Because it's not a huge change, but it is kind of nasty. So basically, the only change to it is first of the Kingsmen. Andrew always had you count as controlling crowns and letter zones for tactics cards and that target this unit, right? So you're always counting as crowns and letters. You usually put this unit in the Kingsmen, at least back in the day. I can't remember. I think it still benefits the Kingsmen. I think you get like Sundering and +1 or something. I got to look at that again. But yeah, this unit is very nasty with some of the other combos that Baratheon have. But now, while your opponent does not control something they've been doing, Baratheon is this: if you don't control these zones, I get these benefits. Which is while opponents don't control crowns or letters, this unit may reroll any morale test. So that's pretty dope. Rerolling morale tests, typically you would only do that with panic tokens, and it would be negative, feels bad. So this is a way to kind of negate that. I'm pretty sure, Carl, you can let me know, but I'm pretty sure that you get to choose to re-roll your morale test after they choose if they want to use the panic token, right? So because you're the is it you're the active? I gotta double check that. But typically, I know with Martell cards, you can re-roll after they choose if they want to use their panic token or not. So I guess it would depend on who the active player is, probably. But morale test, it's usually panic test when you're getting charged or when you're getting attacked. So you should be able to in most cases. So yeah, that's a huge improvement. It definitely makes this. I got beat against someone running Andrew Estermont in the first round of Wardens of the West, which West Coast Bannerman Carl put on last month. And he's already tanky. He's already got a 6-up charge card in his deck. He just hits like a ton of bricks. But now if you're also getting this additional bonus, I think that he's much more interesting to try to roll with. Let's see here. Cash Crop says Kingsman ability depends on opponent not controlling, so Andrew only benefits the tactics deck now. Okay, that makes sense. Interesting. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So anyway, I think he becomes a very interesting commander to try to come up with some combos with. And then third best improvement for Baratheon, I think, is the improvement to Davos. It took me a second last night to figure out what was actually changed about this because everything's the same. But with the help of a lot of the boys in the chat right now, I identified that Davos ignores the usual attachment limits. And I was asking Brandon Cashcrop, who runs Baratheon exclusively, I think, pretty much, what combos he would see working well with this. And let me pull up the chat because he had some awesome options here. Basically, he said, you can run Brawn in them with like a light bringers or a shooting unit, and now you can outflank light bringers while also having like Brawn in them to get extra attacks. That would be really nasty. Let me see here. Go up to the top. Yeah, that was the first one he talked about. The other one, I mean, another great one would be Devon. I think this is the one I had thought about, having Devon, his son, in that unit. Now you outflank a unit that has auto 6 charge with the reckless heroism. Pretty freaking nasty. Reminds me a lot of like the stuff people would do with Victarion in Greyjoy. So that would be pretty gross. Probably the best one that he brought up. I mean, look, it might just be too many points, or might have some problem with it that you don't want to throw so many points into one unit. But if you throw Axel into Golden Company swords, I'm reading this exact word for word what Brandon said. You have a 7/7/7 Sundering Vicious Crit Blow with rerolls outflanking Pathfinder Beast. So that's pretty gross. I think he should definitely try that out and wreck some people's day at the next tournament. I think that opens up a lot of possibilities. All this stuff is going to need to be tested, and the combos are going to need to be kind of teased out and figured out what are the best ways to use these guys. But Davos being able to give a unit outflank and Pathfinder that also can have another attachment is just pretty nasty. So it'll be fun to see how people use that. Let me catch up on this here. He dabbled in pillaging booty as well. Okay, well then I guess the connection to the Greyjoys isn't too far off. And I think we all like to dabble in pillaging booty. Diet Coke in the morning. Great decision. Just kidding. That's coffee. And he's now busy being a new dad. Yeah. Congratulations, Davos. Oh, dude. You're not even talking about Davos. Are you talking about Brandon? You probably are. Congratulations, Brandon, for having kids. Great job, dude. Like, I'm not going to do it, so I'm glad you did. Good work. All right, so keeping it moving. Let's see here. Stuff that I thought was meh for Baratheon updates. One, I think it's just a full-on downgrade. Is Renly Baratheon, Lord Paramount of the Stormlands, Boisterous Charisma getting a nerf. That sucks. Just sucks in general for sure. I mean, it's cool that now you have a new ability. Maybe there's ways to use it, but yeah, you gotta. I mean, you're gonna get your ass eaten when you play Martell, and you don't have an option to stop them from getting those cards on you. I think counterplot is really the only thing that can kind of slow down Martell, especially if they have Arya Hota. They're gonna get those cards out quick, and now you have one way of stopping it. And then the cards, again, thanks to Brandon for helping me out with a lot of these. Reform is just like, technical wording changed. Nothing really changed too much here. Inexplicable return. You have the option of drawing a new card if your commander's dead, or just if it's just not the card that you need. And then the biggest nerf for Baratheon, I think, is this nerf to tactical approach, which I don't hate. Like, it just makes it so that it's a little bit less easy to break the game in one-shot units. So instead of when you put this card on it gives a D to any unit, and if it's Stannis' unit, it goes auto 3 wounds. Now they brought it down to it gives 1 wound to any unit on their attack, on melee attacks, and plus of a bump. He kind of splits the difference on a D3, giving 2 wounds, and he's. I don't know. It feels like a smart nerf. It feels like a good decision probably to use him. And the real problem was I put him in Queen's Bend and he just never could get into the battle. So maybe this allows people to think of him as less of a threat, and maybe I actually can get in there and mix it up with people if I'm using this. From using Rightful Heir. Let's see. Anything else? You've got Noah. I don't know what that means. Noah better watch it because he's got a bad attitude and I don't know. I'm trying to talk shit, but I can't really think of what else to say. It BC updated. What is BC? I keep seeing that and I realize what it is, and then Boisterous Charisma. Thank you. Okay, I got it. It was kind of unnecessary. I think that you could cheat, you could spam it because it was on that Golden Company officer unit, so people could I'll be honest. Look, I gotta confess, my first game in our league, we had this league where you could make changes to your list, and we had it open for the first couple weeks, so you could make 20 points of changes to your lists. I was playing Martell the first game. I know Martell like the back of my hand. I cheesed every unit that I had in my list had Boisterous Charisma. I ran Lord Paramount of the Stormlands, and then I had the officers in every unit. So my Martell player that I was playing, I mean, dude, talk about feels bad. He basically 60% of his deck didn't work. He basically at one point he was like, "Oh, okay, let me see how long it takes to get to a card that I can use," and he burned 7 cards, and it's oh, there it is. So I don't mind that it was. I think you basically just needed to take it off of the neutral unit. I think that Boisterous Charisma is a great tool to have, but that neutral unit made it so that you could spam it, and that was kind of nasty. And I feel bad about that, by the way, guys. I do feel bad. I'd do it again in a heartbeat, but I do feel bad. Shout out to Dust. If you're watching, you're my boy. I'm sorry about that. Let's see here. Similar to yeah. Okay. Counter strategy, embarrassed in NCU as well. I'm not sure what that is. Elaborate, Carl, on that. And then, other options. I got you. Other options for stopping Martell bullshit on your cards or on your units. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely a lot of options. A few more options than just counter plot. That's the first one that comes to mind. But yeah, that's good. Similar bonus wounds to the new prep. Yes, and that was so we're doing Targaryens next. I feel like that Promise of Fire is like a little mini tactical approach that you put on a dragon, basically, which is very cool. And that's actually more like the old tactical approach, which is nice. They could have just fixed targeting rules finally. Yeah, that'd be nice. Noah sounds like my friend Teddy, KGB. All right, now we're doing rounder stuff. This is definitely Jason. Jason, what's up? Thanks for being in the chat, brother. That was a mean. Yeah, it was a mean list. And you know who I got it from, Christian? I got it from you. Your second list going into LVO, where you had 2 units with Boisterous Charisma. And if for everybody that doesn't know, I'm sure everybody here knows, Christian won LVO last year. And so, yeah, that worked out really nicely for you. And I took that lesson to heart, how powerful that was. So, cool. Honored. Yeah. All right. So, Mother of Dragons, I can't wait to try again. Yeah, that's let's get on to, let's see, is there anything else to talk about here? I think we're good for Baratheon. So, we're going to go to Targaryen. Let me switch my paper here. Took some notes. I don't know if you guys can tell. It's pretty cool. Like a researcher or something. All right, Targs. What do we got? First off, biggest improvement to Targs, I think, are the improvements to Mother of Dragons. Her card, whatever, she got like threaten put on there, so she can protect herself a little bit more, which is great. I can't remember who was saying this last night, but I think it might have been Noah. But yeah, I think it was Noah. Daenerys should maybe be like an NCU commander. There's no reason for her to be out on the board, I don't think. So maybe you make her an NCU commander, and that's the move. But she has like she can have Grey Worm be her, or someone be her proxy. That would be kind of cool. James, all right, brother, we'll see you. Thanks for sticking around for as long as you did. So yeah, she got threatened. That's fine. But really, the improvement that she got was to her cards. And actually, one of her cards got nerfed a little bit, but still, I think the update to Promise of Fire is enough to make her probably the most improved unit in Targaryens. So we'll go over those in a second. But yeah, Mother of Dragons, I think, is going to see a lot more play. People tinkering, trying to make that work. And we'll go over it now. So the one nerf to her cards is Dracarys. Instead of long range, now it's short range, which kind of makes sense because she's got to be calling out to her dragon. That makes sense and kind of slows things down, or tightens things up for her in terms of that ability, and puts her in a little bit more danger. So it's good that she has threatened. And then we have Fire Made Flesh. Again, huge improvement. Christian, good call out. So this one didn't change necessarily, but the main thing is that instead of kicking out one of the best cards that the Targaryens have, which is Overrun, this card now replaces the worst card, in my opinion, right now for the deck, which is Field Control. So a huge boon for anyone running Mother of Dragons. You now have Overrun with your dragons. Oh my God, it's gonna be brutal the first time that happens to someone. Especially if you have the next card, which is, the next card, which is Promise of Fire, which is like a mini tactical approach for Stannis, right? So let's go down and check that out. Promise of Fire. So when an enemy NCU activates, if that enemy NCU claims a zone for that activation, attach this card to one enemy combat unit until the end of the game. They suffer one panic test. While attached, each time Drogo, Rhaegal, or Viserion unit performs an attack against this unit suffers 3 wounds instead of a D3. So basically, you just max out the D3 roll when you're attacking a unit, and so that's pretty nasty. You're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, Christian. Yeah, it's a buff to Dracarys from short range to long range. I'm sorry, I missed that I was looking at both cards, and I think I just mixed them up in my head. Wow, okay, so they got a buff on that card too. So they really want Mother of Dragons to be something that people consider playing. Okay, so Promise of Fire. Basically, you're just making those dragon attacks way, way stronger. And I think people ran the math. It still takes 3 attacks to take a unit out with dragons. With both infantry and cav, I think solo units, you can shut things down. You can kill things a bit quicker in some cases. And I think giants are the ones that I think are still pretty resilient against dragons. But I didn't realize until reading this here that this might not go off, right? I think what you're likely going to do is use this as a threat. I think higher level players are probably going to tip. They activate their NCU, you play this card, and then they say, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want that on me," unless they have some way to mitigate it, or it's not going to matter to them. I think that you would rather just tip and not attach this card, take a panic test, and then just be the target for all of those dragon attacks. So yeah, but still a lot of value there. So that's very good. What else do we got? So yeah, overall, I think Mother of Dragons is number 1 in terms of the improvements for Targaryens. Let's see here, Carl. It's interesting card starts with a panic test. If failed, on average, you... Oh, right. So if you fail that panic test, then yeah, you probably only need 2 attacks from a dragon. Yeah, that's a interesting math there. I'm not a math guy, so I'll take your word for it. Okay, so then we're cruising. We're going to the next thing. Next thing I think is the biggest improvement to the Targaryens is going to be, and this is a sneaky improvement. I don't think it actually. I was talking to Noah, our resident dragon here, about what Targaryens needed with this update and what pikemen needed most of all. Pikemen, the main issue is that they are a lot of points that you're investing into a unit that in this meta, people turn off your, like Makaro turns off your abilities when he attacks. Tywin can turn off your abilities for a turn and then they attack you. Or, sorry, for a round and then they attack you. Stark have a card that allows them to turn off your abilities when they charge. There's a lot that interacts with your stuff. And so the problem with pikemen is that you have all of this cool stuff. You have set for charge, you have shield wall. If you're playing Stark, they don't care. They get that card on you and they just turn all your shit off when they hit you. Then all that stuff didn't matter. Now you're engaged with way less, way less wounds, and you're way behind. You have to, and there's not a lot of healing in Targaryen, so that's the main issue with this unit is that all of their stuff is built into something that people are targeting to turn off if they're a high level player. And then now you have combat mastery defense. So now you basically have, while your opponent doesn't control the swords, enemies engaged with this unit suffer -1 to hit. Cool. You have like a conditional disrupt ability. That's great. I think that's very cool. It still is on a unit that I think is super susceptible to having its shit turned off and its shit pushed in on the same turn. But I mean, it's cool. You have a disrupt ability now. Now you're affecting other units that are in. If you're engaged multiple with this unit and another unit, you're affecting them. You're giving them disrupt. I still think this is the second best improvement to the Targaryens. Honestly, I think that the improvement to Adravat, which we're going to talk about, is really sneakily the second biggest improvement because Khal Drogo is really the best commander for Targaryens anyway. And so improving his cards, I think, are just going to, in general, make Targaryen a stronger faction on the top end. But we'll get to that. And because I'm not going to just say, oh, this one card, Drogo is the most improved, I'm going to give it to the pikemen. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong. Maybe if you play in less competitive metas where they're not turning off your abilities as much, pikemen are just gonna rule. They just rule. So now they rule more. They win more. So yeah, I would put them at second on the biggest improvement list, and then third, I think it's interesting. This unit is almost unplayable in our meta because they are immediately targeted. Unlike the pikemen who have abilities to kind of protect themselves, this unit really doesn't. And they have so much of a threat when they attack that you have to so they have so much of a threat. There's so much of a threat when they attack. They can't be weakened. They always get rerolls. They're throwing at least 8 dice. If you have Grey Worm in there, it's 9 dice with the boldness and courage. That you just double team this unit, get them off the board as soon as possible, and then they really don't make they don't make many waves typically. So I actually am interested in this. I think that it's kind of reminds me of what Dauntless. I don't know if this was taken off of Greyjoy. I haven't played them since the update, but when Greyjoy, when the Silence Men would pass their morale test, they'd get a +1, and you'd attack them so much that they'd often pass it over and over again. So you get 1, 2, 3, and that makes the difference between that unit going off the board that round or being able to get another attack first turn next round, right? Or you being able to help them in some way. So I actually think this might be sneakily one of the best improvements, and it's measured. It doesn't break this unit. it just gives them a little bit of sustain that they didn't have before. Okay, so those are my top three, just in general. And now we'll get into, let me go back to comments here. It's an interesting card. Yeah, okay, we got that. Okay, something about MOD is taking Zin now. Okay, yeah, Zin's great. Everybody likes the drag Zin. Yeah, it protects them a bit from cancel effects. Yeah, perhaps. I mean, doesn't it still get turned off when you turn off abilities? Like if Tywin hits them, that ability doesn't count, right? So if we're talking about pikemen, I think that it's still there's still a little bit too um, reliant on so much defensive stuff for that one turn. I think if you gave them something a little bit more punchy, then maybe somebody would think twice about attacking them. But yeah, I'm not really sure. Oh, Maquaro. Yeah. Okay. And then count the cuts. Okay, Carl says count the cuts is number one improvement for Tarks because that card was easily voted as worst card of the game. Yeah. Okay, that's true. And you may be being silly because I see an LOL at the end. But I'm just saying, like, is it going to make you run that unit? Probably not. But yeah, in terms of most improved, yeah, that might be it. Uh, Marslin has Dauntless. Oh, so you could put. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you could team up Marslin with. You put them in the Swordsman, and now you basically heal 2 whenever you pass a panic test. Okay. That's an interesting take. I don't know if he's good enough because of his interplay with like a suboptimal unit. He does a lot with the Freedmen, which I don't think are very competitive right now. But I know James used them a bit and found some success. So that'd be an interesting thing to tinker with. See, that's what I like about these updates is that they give us a. That's the main thing. Like, I don't know if this resets the meta really, but what it does is it gives us at the game store, and really that's all we can ask for, I think. So, okay, cool. So we're all caught up there. My 1, 2, 3. And then I want to talk about Jorah. Jorah got an improvement. Basically, he's now going to have a +1. He basically has. Yeah, we're going to talk about more of the cards in a second. I just want to talk about this unit real quick. Jorah has +1 hand size limit, and basically he's got, what is it? What's the effect called? Battle plan, I think. No, not battle plan. Can't remember what it's called, but like it's the thing that what's his name? God damn. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, bookkeeping. Thank you. Brandon, you're the best. He is basically bookkeeping. So he's going to increase your hand size and also help you, refill more. The problem with this is that, in my opinion, Targaryen have the worst tactics deck in the game right now. So now if you bring him with somebody who has, like, if you bring him with Mother of Dragons, and now you have a chance to get card advantage, you get through your deck faster, find those great cards, and have access to them more, that could be useful. But then he doesn't really pair well with any of those dragons because he also gives scout openings, which doesn't really pair well. But I think with, just in general, you want bookkeeping when you have a better deck, a better base deck, because you want to have more options, more cards. And I think a lot of the cards for Targaryen are really underwhelming. They're all based on movement. And when you compare them card to card with Greyjoy, Stark, Martell, I mean, even Baratheon, right, with their token manipulation, I think that movement stuff is just a little overrated and just falls behind quite a bit. So, and this didn't fix the main problem with Jorah, which is he's 3 wounds, which means that if your opponent, if you leave the crowns open, your opponent can just crown zap this 3 or less, or you have to roll a 3 or less on your panic test. But trust me, it happens. and it doesn't cost them anything. They're just like, I'm just going to take a Hail Mary here and try to hit this guy. And when you lose Jorah to a panic test, now they also have to roll a 3 damage, right? But when you lose Jorah to a panic test, it's game breaking, and now you just have more of your strategy that goes out the window as soon as he's off the table. So I think this is it's cute, it's interesting. Maybe people can make it work, but I think it just more than anything just it's a trap to run Jorah still. If you brought his panic down, if you brought his morale, brought it up, I guess, made him less susceptible to that panic strike, or if you just gave him one more wound, I think that he'd be a much more interesting option to right now. I think, competitively, he's hard to run. And now we'll go ahead and talk about the tactics cards. Well, first, we'll just quickly go over Daario Naharis. The changes just with hurting to motivated by coin. So that's why he's here. Yeah, he's just a bigger target. Exactly. Okay, so that's just, it looks like there's just a changing to the words. It just clarifies that you can only have one unit get an attack off of you claiming the bags when you have motivated by coin instead of, nobody ran it this way, but I guess there was confusion around could you have like multiple units all get an attack when you took the bags. And so this just clarified it. Now we'll get into the tactics cards. Now here's the interesting thing. I think of all of the 3 that I've really looked into, Baratheon, Martell, and Targaryen have the most changes to their commander tactics cards. And this update originally was supposed to be for commanders, really, to improve commanders. And I think Targaryens look like they maybe benefited the most so far of all of the 3 that I talked about before. They got a lot of upgrades. So 3 of Daenerys cards got upgrades, and Dracarys is now an upgrade too. One of the things that we're going to see, and it looks like it's across all of the factions, is they've cut a lot of the VPs, bullshit, and I didn't realize how many of those were in the Targaryen commander cards until I looked at this. So we have legendary boldness, Barristan Selmy. I don't know if this makes him someone you could run, but it's just a way more functional card now than it was. So it's way more easy to use. Basically, after a friendly unit within long range, Barristan rolls defense dice. That unit blocks 2 hits and automatically passes a panic test from panic. So, maybe Barristan is someone that you consider running with your Unsullied, especially like swordsmen, just to give them a little bit more sustain, kind of surprise people when they stay on the board after they allocate so much to trying to get them off. It might make the difference. Again, Marcelin, I think, is another interesting option with that Dauntless. But yeah, this is just a way more functional card, way less conditions than the way it originally was set up. So I like that improvement. Count the cuts, again, another one. No more BS with the victory points, and then just a much better card, and much more useful, much more attacky, which is nice. So after an enemy completes a melee attack, target the defender, attach this card to them until they destroy an enemy unit. While attached, this unit rolls its highest attack die value and may reroll any attack die. If this targets Belwas's unit, it gains +1 to morale test results. Okay, so basically this is great, and I like the synergy here. You're with Belwas, you want to be taking hits, you're taunting, you're bringing enemies towards him. You throw this card on him, he's already probably gone down a rank, or he's hurting probably, and now he's more effective. He's rolling his highest attack value, which he was doing before with this card, but now he's getting rerolls, which I think is awesome. And so just in general, and then the VP stuff being cut from this makes it way more usable. So I think that's definitely an improvement. Is this the one, Carl, you said was your favorite improvement? You want to talk about that in the chat? You probably have some thoughts on it. I'll come back to it. But also sudden retreat. I actually don't know. Maybe they didn't see anything that really got changed with this, so I don't know. Seems like it's pretty much the same. Um, and it's whatever. It's fine. Had if Khal Drogo had sudden retreat access to it, because with all of that cavalry, you it's a bummer. Like it might have been nice if they switched the cards that he has to kick out. I know thematically that makes sense, but just in general, he's also Dothraki are great cavalry, fighters off of a horse. You'd think that they would have the ability to be like, I'm off and I'm charging again. Retribution of the Dragon, big improvement here, which is so now when you put it on, so let's see what it says. After a friendly unit is attacked, target the attacker, attach this card to them until the end of the game. While attached, each time this unit is attacked, the attacker gains vicious. So always anyone that attacks a unit that has this card on them will have vicious. But each time this unit is attacked, if the attacker is Grey Worm or an Unsullied unit, it also becomes vulnerable. Okay, this is one of the issues I have with this game, is that I understand why they're doing this. They're trying to add a little bit more value for Unsullied or Grey Worm to attack something. But you have to think, like, while you're doing everything, you have to remember these two different conditions, which is it's always going to have vicious, but then when these guys attack, it now throws in a vulnerable. It's just so easy to get confused with stuff like that. And I wish they would take that into account and simplify, because the game's very complex and have a lot of people forget that this card is doing work. Especially like newer players are going to have a hard time, like, I should have thrown a vulnerable on you, or you have that card, you should be getting vicious. So it's fine. It's definitely an improvement if you're using it and getting all the value out of it. But I just think in general, the design of this card, we could see less of this. Just simplify it. They're simplifying a lot of other stuff. They did the VP stuff out of there. Again, very good. And yeah. Ultimately, I think it's an improvement. Betrayal, no more VP bullshit. Now you're drawing 2 cards instead of 1, which is cool. And let's see. Oh, and let's read the card. When a friendly NCU claims a zone, replace that zone's effect with draw 2 tactics cards, restore 3 wounds to Jorah's unit. One enemy combat unit becomes vulnerable and weakened. And there's no range to that, which is cool. All right, we'll see you, Jason. Thanks for coming, brother. And so that there's no range to that. It doesn't have to be in short range or long range of Jorah's unit. You can just do that to anybody, which is really nasty. And then it's this card to Jorah's unit until they destroy 1 combat unit. While attached, each time this unit activates, they suffer 1 wound and become panicked. So it's interesting because they cut you can't heal this unit. I think that was one of the things, is that they would take the wound, but they also couldn't heal. So yeah, they've just reworked a lot of these cards to just work a bit better and to help Targaryens a bit more than they were previously. And there's not as much risk reward with all the victory point exchange. Like, I can get an extra victory point, or I give 1 away. Giving 1 away is just too much of something you can't control, and it just can swing the game in the wrong direction. So that's Adravat. Like I said, I think this is probably one of the sneakily biggest upgrades to this deck, or to the commander's deck. You don't have any victory point issues. What used to happen, I've run this. Noah really kind of tuned a great Khal Drogo list. I've run a similar list at Wardens of the West, and a bunch leading up to it. And what I realized is that Adravat, you're like holding on to it until you can kill a unit. And it worked one time. I think I was playing Kevin, his Lannisters, and I was able to like put this on someone then kill a unit and then overrun into that unit and then hit them with a couple other people. But it's so conditional to know that you're going to be able to wipe a unit that a lot of times you just hold on to this card or you just pitch it, So this makes it so that now it's just you're marking a unit and everybody gets crit blow on them, which is great because Blood Riders have Sundering, the Screamers have Sundering, so now you have Sundering and crit blow. I mean, it's just brutal, and now you can use it. That's the big thing. You're not using it and then costing yourself a victory point if you don't kill something or you can't get to them. So I think that's a huge improvement. We're going to see a lot more Drogo, hopefully. Marcelin, when a friendly combat unit activates, that unit performs one morale test. On a success, target one enemy in long range. It becomes panicked or vulnerable, so that's how Warcry typically works. But if it's Marcelin's unit or an Unsullied unit, okay, that's interesting. I didn't see that part. So you have more targets for it where you're going to have the old Warcry throw out 2 tokens. That's pretty nasty. Hey, listen, Drogo's bodied up, bro. I'll take Drogo any day. It's a good-looking man. So Warcry has a bit more utility because it's not just Marcelin's unit, but it's also Unsullied units. That's pretty cool. And old Warcry was low-key broken. I mean, that's why they fixed it and made it just either panic or vulnerable. So to throw out both is just pretty nasty. It's a big buff for him. And then Queen's Law for Skahaz Mo Kondik. When an enemy combat unit activates, attach this card to that enemy unit until the end of the round. While attached during your opponent's turns, it loses all abilities, cannot be targeted by friendly tactics cards. So the first part of this card, which is really interesting, is that switched when the abilities get turned off. I think when I was reading the old version of the card, it said on your turns they can't use they lose all abilities and can't be targeted by tactic cards. Now it's switched to on their turns they can't use those things, which probably has more utility. Now it's less of a the meta of turning shit off when you want to attack it, which is very nice. But a lot of cards go on your unit when, I would say more cards go on your unit on your turn than they do on the opponent's turn. I don't have data on that. I'm just saying it feels like that. If I'm wrong, obviously, just let me know. So I think it gives it a bit more utility to kind of turn things off when people are coming at you, just kind of neutralize them. And it's 4 rounds, so it's not that oppressive. But yeah, you can give people a second thought. The other part, which they added, which I think is really cool, is if Skohaz's unit or a Brazen Beast unit performs a charge against this unit, they automatically count as rolling a 6 on all charges, on all charge distance. I mean, we know how good that is. And so to be able to, and the cool thing about this is there's no I can tip my NCU and keep this off of me like Promise of Fire. This is just when they activate. As a Martell player, I know that trigger very well. When they activate, you toss this on them. It's very much a Martell card. I think that's he's kind of like the Martell commander in Targaryen, which is nice. So yeah, that's cool. Christian, are you saying that Drogo is the best commander in the game? Is that what you're saying, brother? I don't think so. I think Ned Stark is probably the best commander in the game. Having played against Nick's Ned Stark list over and over again, he's just so oppressive. I think Drogo is very, very good, and he gets better for sure. Oh, who are you talking about? Oh, Marcelin, who are you talking about? Oh, just Targs in general. The already best commander kind of buff. That's awesome. I don't know. Targs in general? Factions do the tricks of other factions. I like that. I think it's cool. You can add a little spice into a faction. It's not like the deck changes really. It's or the units necessarily, but yeah, you give a little bit of spice, and it actually helps me as a Martell player. First and foremost, I can go over and I can say, okay, I look at Skahaz, or whatever his name is, and I can say, okay, my brain can figure out how to play this, just from knowing and having experience. So with Martell, so I don't mind that so much. I think it's cool. So yeah, in general, I think Targ's got the biggest buff of any of the factions that I've seen so far. I could be wrong. I'm going to really do a deep dive on 3 more factions moving north up Westeros. So I guess that would be Lannister. Uh, who's next? Lannister. I don't know. I'll look into it. I got to look at a map. But yeah, maybe next week we'll do 3 more, and we'll do a deep dive. But so far, I think Targaryen's got the biggest bump. I think Martell got a good suite of things to tinker with, and to see if we can find some synergies to offset the weaknesses. I would say Baratheon probably didn't get nearly as much, but Riders of Highgarden are very interesting now. So that's good. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Share, subscribe, do all this stuff with your friends or whatever. I don't know what YouTubers say. I mean, I do know it. I've just never said it, so I'm not doing it right. Also, I'm going to be doing a lot more of this kind of content. So if you're interested in supporting, please go to my Patreon, patreon.com/godsgrief, and sign up. And I will try to do some exclusive content pretty soon there. But for now, I'm going to sign off and just thank everybody for joining me. This was a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing it again next week. All right, guys. I'll see you.